Start talking. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today is Saturday, the 27th of April, 2019, and this is the Saturday Human Colony Hucolo webinar. We're very pleased today because we have a very special guest. We have actor, director, stuntman, videographer, biographer.
Biographer? What's a biographer?
Book, apparently, I've decided. Reuben Langdon. Hi, Reuben. Welcome.
Hey, Karen. Good to see you again. Good to talk.
Good to talk to you too. And I'm just going to introduce our room. We have today with us, we have Bree, Christine, Dawn. We have Wendy, Laura, Michelle, Reinhard, Reuben, of course, Sheer, Raymond. Oh, I clicked on Raymond, so now we know he's there. Steve and myself, and then hello to everyone in YouTube and welcome. I just want to do a couple little housekeeping things before we start. Just so you know, on the 8th through the 12th of August in Rochester, New York is the 4th Ascension Workshop coming up. And if you want to find out about it, you can go to hucolo.org. And also too, all of our efforts are supported by our Hucolo Club members. So for $10 a month, you can join us. You have access to all of our paid webinars, as well as first access to our free classes and everything that we offer. So please go to hucolo.org/webinars and you can join us. So thank you very much for that. And normally we start with a blessing. Is there anybody here that'd like to do a blessing?
I would.
Wendy? Wendy?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Wait a second, 1 second. Anyone else? No? Okay, go ahead, Wendy.
I just wanted to say thank you, Reuben, for being here. This is an absolute delight and just a really a very special day for all of us. Many of us have been looking very forward to meeting you. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Niasatashi la 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗧𝗧𝗡𝗧 la 𝗪𝗙𝗪𝗪 la 𝗪𝗪𝗪 le shamalkora le katapi kalakombaikano kiambarkoshote la sepotaya lambokoyatora kasho maliama alakotese sapalankora misheki ita li balakolako mashatota iki alakombayashanate elakosonopalaha la sheke la sama soposhoko plekere sate salakora. Basically what they were saying was this day and these meetings bring us all one step closer to raising the vibrational frequency of the human collective consciousness, and all of us becoming, raising our frequency to that of to one step closer to this of creating the reality of first contact. So, and especially with you being here, Reuben, today, that's very significant today. So, Siatoshe, thank you.
Thank you. And now, thank you, Wendy. And now, Bree will give a blessing. Go ahead, Bree.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, I am very excited that you are here, Reuben. So thank you for joining. You are an awesome person. I'll say all for now. In that tauro oteshikin yaho hasin desio hora hate san kiatao koro oto desh ar an desiok o rotos an nesisio so in desisio so to shonrusk in jas are desio o aishe ke yanyo to ishi.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste. So, Reuben, and in case you didn't know, Hucolo is very big on light languages. And
yeah, I can tell. Look at that. Awesome.
Everyone, most of us, if they are not speaking light languages, are practicing and learning. And there's another group on Facebook called Keepers of the Code, which is all about light languages. People like Wendy who are getting them in writing. There's a lot of people that are doing the hand stuff and also speaking them. And there's also a webinar for Keepers of the Code that comes, I think, I'm not sure what time, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. EST for those members. So if you'd like to join Keepers of the Code on Facebook, then through Hucolo, we host a light language sort of webinar. And it's really fun. And there's a lot of blessings and healings and stuff like that that is going on. And people are expressing their inner light language, and it's really
Yeah, that's something I plan to get into in future interviews. So
well, you are. I've
awesome.
been speaking light language since I was 15, and a lot of people here have been speaking them. So we'll be happy to talk to you about those. So
Excellent.
yeah. So welcome, 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 and everyone. If you are not aware, this is Reuben Langdon. He is an actor, a director, and stuntman, and a lot of other things that I'm not going to list.
Right. Right. We already listed some.
So, but why don't you, because the people here may know your name, they might have seen a few things from you, but why don't you tell them in your own words, sort of, what you do and how you got started, and I'll let you just sort of talk in long stream and come in with some questions as well. So.
Well, right now I am acting and directing and stunt coordinating. I still do that from time to time. Stunt performing, less and less of that, and sort of following my joy and doing more of documentary projects, sort of definitely with more of Interview with Ed, the TV show, but other documentary projects that may excite me and get me going, and working on a film now with this sort of developed. Well, if any of you guys have been following my work, I started working on a film a few months back. Got shot at in Guatemala, which we can talk about later. But that film project, things have sort of shifted. So I'm now doing a film with the same director of Vision of the Ages and Shift of the Ages, working with him, and we're doing a documentary sort of around my work with the Interview with Ed stuff, as well as just pursuing disclosure. And it's more, I'm still a part of the other documentary as far as helping out, but we've sort of shifted my focus and going after this new project that we're calling it ETA, Extraterrestrial Awakening.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so it has a nice ring to it, and you can kind of get an idea of what from the title of where the direction of the film's going to go, but that's in the works and just in the beginnings, and that's what I'm doing now. But yes, as I mentioned, I do wear many hats, and sort of wherever I'm being guided to spend the time, that's where I go now. And the opportunity for this new project ETA has come up, and I'm sort of putting some focus into that. And the great thing about that is I get to do my Interview with Ed show simultaneously, because this documentary film is following me doing my work, basically.
So you are a biographer then.
What's that?
You are kind of a biographer then. It is sort of biography.
Oh, okay. It's a biography, I guess, a little bit. It's weird. It's because now we have this extra layer.
Right.
It's like it's making us think in all kinds of sort of different concepts of like reality, when you can have different perspectives of reality. So it's actually, we're making a film of me making a film, so or making a TV show. So there's these different layers, and we're going to get into that into the film. We're going to unpack about how many different layers of our reality there are with, we understand oversouls and different conversation pieces that have come up throughout the Interview with Ed stuff. We're sort of now implementing that in this creation of a new documentary.
That's really cool.
But yeah, I've done the citizen hearing on disclosure, as you mentioned, co-produced that. And what else?
Was that your idea? Was that your baby as far as your idea?
Well,
or how did that?
The actual concept came from Stephen Bassett. So
okay,
I was working with him back in 2011, 2012, up to 2013. So for, about 3 years, we were working together and received funding. And I dove in deep and started producing that under my production company at the time, Just Cause Productions. And somehow through it was a tough adventure, but somehow we pulled it off. and did that 5-day conference in DC with 6 former members of Congress and 1 senator and over 40 witnesses, mostly military, government officials, and researchers, well-known researchers on the subject. And yeah, it was still to date the largest body of evidence in one setting on the extraterrestrial subject.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to watch that, you can find it on Vimeo. I put a link at the bottom, but it's also on Reuben's website. You can find a link to that to watch.
Probably a little basic for your audience, but I call it the ABCs of ufology.
Yeah.
So anybody who may be skeptical or just coming into this information, it's a very grounded approach to explain, this presence that has been with us on this planet probably since the beginning of the planet, but
yeah,
sort of in the shadows, so to say, in our lifetimes, in our parents' lifetimes, and and we all know the story, but yeah, it's still a great resource, and I recommend folks to check it out.
Perfect. What I wonder, because I mean, I know a little bit of your history, and I did some research, and I watched all your promo stuff you have on IMDb and all of that, and as an actor. But how did you? So you went from doing like martial arts into doing stunt work, film, and that kind of thing. But how did you become interested in this part of the world? And I just say I love the fact that you've been able to bring them out so genuinely and so with so much integrity that you're not, you're really just staying true to yourself, and that's just so very special. So thank you for that. But how did you get into this area?
Well, just before I jump into that.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I've been exactly. Sometimes I don't acknowledge it enough, but I have this following from the video game world, and a lot of the projects I've worked on, especially the ones in the video game space, they love my work, and they invite me to conventions, and I travel to across the world, and I'm going to Ireland, as we were saying, in a couple months to talk about video games and that kind of thing. So that audience has been very how do I say, forgiving and understanding, and also allowing me to follow my passions. A lot of them don't agree with this type of information or this type of speak, so to say, but they're not dogging on it so bad, and they're sort of like, oh yeah, Reuben, he's the UFO guy. They may not understand it, and they may not choose to dive into it, but they also really don't throw me under the bus for it. Typically, there's been a couple instances, but really minor. So I have a very forgiving and open audience to start with so to allow me to pursue these types of conversations without any kind of ridicule.
Yeah.
Which is not the case for most other industries, perhaps normal Hollywood type situations, if I was a Hollywood star, so to say, or we've heard of some of basketball people or other people who have sort of come open and talk about their experiences of abduction or temporary detainment, then they sort of get laughed at, or they're in the news, and that it's not looked at as a positive thing, so to say.
Yeah.
However, my audience, is just kind of very forgiving, and just, again,
I don't think
not many people.
A video gamer who is, I mean, I was a WoW player, not, like crazy WoW player, but I was a WoW player. And if you go through World War, you would never know it. I'm really, I'm a sci-fi kind of geek and everything.
All right.
But wow, I mean, just in all the worlds that you have, and some of the stuff I see, I'm like, and you look and you listen to the lore that's built in, and all of these video games that have this lore, and there's magic, and there's all these different worlds. I don't know how anybody that is at all in those worlds cannot be open to so much of this other stuff.
Well,
I wonder where these guys get their inspiration from. You
Well,
know,
they and that's sort of the audience that I get to start with, which is
yeah,
great. They're already primed
yeah,
and molded and ready to receive this information. And many are not, consciously ready, but I think subconsciously this information resonates with a lot of people who are in those genres already.
right.
So it's, and then if it doesn't resonate, instead of them attacking it and like we were saying, throwing people under the bus, they kind of just like, oh well, yeah, Reuben's the UFO guy. So
Yeah,
it kind of works. It's kind of been working for me. I've been tiptoeing into this world. Well, actually, I should take that back. I've been diving full into this world without.
you may have tiptoed in the begin, but it's gone to a full run by now.
Yeah, no, I'm full in the peanut butter, I say.
Yeah.
And yeah, my audience has just been super, and I go to work and people at work know me as, oh yeah, you have a UFO question, go talk to Reuben, and it's, and when I say my work, my outside of this world, right? When I go on set or go to work with fellow actors who I've worked with or on and off, over the years on different projects. It's not a typical, well, I should say it's a typical conversation for me on set, but many actors who don't agree with what I have to say, they kind of roll their eyes like, oh, Reuben and his UFO talk, whatever,
Yeah.
but they can take it in a, and then we can kind of laugh at it. And I want to create that space for people. And I think that's what we need to do is not attack people who aren't willing to embrace this information fully. We just sort of, I like to make it fun. And this is why I make the joke about the peanut butter,
Yeah.
I just call it peanut butter. And this is no offense to anybody here, because I'm fully with you guys and, getting the downloads. And I haven't started the light language, but I've actually get some hand sign things come through. So
Do you? Awesome.
so here we go. So
can I tell you just one quick thing about that is, I spend the time in India, and one of the things is when Kundalini is rising, it's very common for people to start doing hand gestures and speaking
all
in tongues and all the time. So this is in our world, even in sort of more in the Hindu belief system, but it's there. So it's not strange. If anything, within India, they would embrace you and be like, come on, do your hand gesture.
Yeah, which when it comes through me, I'm always trying to recognize the energy that's flowing in the moment, and then I'm trying to feel what is guiding my hands into those positions to then see what to try to make sense of it a little bit. But
you doing martial arts though, I would think you were very in touch with that chi energy. And
that's so I do have that background of Tai Chi, Qigong, and now Wim Hof, and that's definitely, I think, that the physicalization of moving chi and stuff. So when I get downloads, so to say, or as we understand that speak, then a lot of it comes through my physical body in a directing that way, as opposed to a vocal channeling sense that you guys get, and you guys get both. But that's sort of where I'm very physical with my my channelings, to say. But I forgot, I think we kind of got off on
so you were talking about how you're being known as the UFO guy, and how that sort of brought you to the point where you are.
Well, I guess you were asking, how did I get there? How did I even become the UFO guy? So on set of Avatar, I was working on and off that film for over 4 years. It was sort of a long journey for a film. Initially, it was only going to be a year, and I did about a year plus, maybe like 15 months, 14 months straight, where I was working pretty much 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week on set. And then they went off to New Zealand to do the live action shoots. And initially I wasn't invited, so I picked up another project in LA with my video game stuff. And then they invited me, and I said, oh, you guys, you were too late. At first they said they were not going to bring me to New Zealand, but so anyways, I declined going to New Zealand. And then then they came back. So like 9 months later, they came back from New Zealand, and then on and off for 3 years. It was maybe a day or 2 days a week. I'd go into set and I'd be working on Avatar. So on Avatar, I'm playing an alien. I was the main stunt double for Jake Sully. So whenever he's running around, falling off the horse, learning how to fly the Banshee and do all that stuff, those physical actions, that was me doing the motion capture. And then, but I got to play, it was sort of part of this core group as the main stunt team, as well as there was a couple of other actors who were part of our team, about 5 to 6 people, every day going in and doing background stuff. So all of the Na'vi in the background, and when you see them come up to Jake as he's entering the village, or doing rituals at Home Tree, all of their motions we had to perform as well as Na'vi. So I had to learn how to walk like a Na'vi, how to do the movements. And then there's a lot of situations that Cameron would put us in that he would model as you know, the Na'vi were sort of modeled after native or indigenous cultures from around the world. We took bits and pieces. We took bits and pieces of the culture, and if anybody pays any attention, most indigenous cultures have a sort of a through line with ceremony, with their belief systems. They're very connected to the earth, and spirits, and a lot of them have sort of rites of passage, initiations. They have ceremonies like with the Maya, they have the fire ceremonies. With the Amazonian tribes, they have ayahuasca. So I'm learning about indigenous cultures while working on Avatar, because that was the role I was supposed to play. I'm supposed to play this alien that does this stuff. So I'm on set, I'm like doing ceremony. We're literally doing ceremony on set, and we're literally taking like a real fish out and cutting it and hanging it up, and we're trying to watch how we had to research a lot of indigenous cultures and how in videos, and even their clothes. A lot of the Na'vi, their wardrobe and clothes were based off of different aspects of different indigenous cultures from around the world.
Wow.
So I got sort of by osmosis, whether I was wanting to learn this information or not, by playing the role, by putting on the Na'vi suit, which was just a motion capture suit. But, we had Velcroed tails and ears onto our hats just for visuals for the reference camera guys. And later the CG guys go in and they do all their stuff. But talk about, embodying an alien, an alien species, that's what we do as actors. And so I was eating, drinking, living the Na'vi lifestyle, for off and on for 4 years, and learning these teachings. Actually sitting, the Maori came, and Jim down in New Zealand got to meet some Maori tribes, and was so fascinated with their culture and their haka. I think they have a ceremony.
Yeah, I love that.
Where the men kind of get really aggressive, and it's a beautiful when you understand the story and you get behind it. Yeah. He actually flew them up, a group up to LA to do the motion capture. He motion captured a ceremony, and then I was on set and I had to learn to do that, and I was like, all right, whatever, who are these guys? Whatever. Awesome. And again, so I'm like performing, and as a Maori guy in the background, they're obviously the pros, but I watch a couple steps and I'm like, okay, do it like that.
When you do ritual, it is about invoking the spirit to embody you, so that you can, do whatever it is the ritual is for, honoring the earth or connecting to your ancestors. And even if you're doing it as an act, that's what actors do all the time. They sort of invoke the energy of whatever they're trying to project. And there is an alchemy that happens. And without you knowing it, that's what you're saying, You
I was oblivious to the
power.
power, to the teachings. Really, this is just, for me, this is a job, this is a role. It's fun, this is crazy. I'm working on the biggest film that's ever going to be, not knowing it's going to be as big as it is, but kind of knowing it's going to be really big. This is James Cameron. We know this is going to be huge.
Yeah.
So it was very exciting every day on set. Simultaneously, there was a lot of glitches in the system. The computer technology was, Jim was really pushing it at the time to perform and do certain things that he could, for designing the world that he did. So there was a lot of timeout we had, where we'd call it, they would yell out, SC, it would be a simple crash, or a DP, a big deep crash, or something like that. So we had time where we're waiting for the computer guys to get the computers going, and our small group of us would just go in the back room and bust open YouTube. So this is like 2007, 6, 7-ish. YouTube was just getting going.
Yeah.
And we were watching a lot of cat videos. But what we also got to watch, which blew my mind and really opened up this whole world to me, we watched the Zeitgeist when they were coming out. So the first one came out, then the second one, and the third one. But Loose Change, and Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project, which was just a 2-hour press conference that he did at the press club back in 2001. But most people didn't even know about that until YouTube came out, and that was released on YouTube, because that happened just a few months before 9/11. Greer will claim the whole reason 9/11 came out was because he did the conference. I think there's a little more to it than just that.
Yeah.
But I saw that,
Right.
thinking, oh my God, ETs are real. I had heard my mom when I was in, growing up in elementary school and junior high school, my mom was deep into the Ramtha teachings.
Wow.
And and at that time, my rebellious self, I was very much not into that. To me, my mom was a nutcase. It was crazy. I'm not, Mom, don't even come to me with your craziness, was sort of, I put that all over there.
Seeds get planted. Yeah.
But the seed got planted. And then and then my mom would talk about stuff like free energy and UFOs, and I was like, all right, maybe kind of. I'd roll my eyes, and that's just crazy talk from my mom, right? So we didn't touch that. We didn't go there. So years later, when Disclosure Project I'm watching on YouTube, I'm like, oh my God, this stuff, my mom was right. I was like, that's crazy. And then I had my own sighting. So in the middle of the day in 2007, it was I forgot, I say it in my opening of my series. I was doing laundry out in it was a rare day I had off. I remember I was like, oh, I'm exhausted. It was like a weekday. And it's like, I gotta get caught up on laundry because we were so busy on set. So I'm out doing my laundry, and the laundry room was outside. If you live in LA, even if it's in the same complex, you still have to. Whoa. There's the laundry. So I went out to drop off the laundry, and I walked out, and I noticed some little, what they kind of look like those little white gnat things in the sky, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was a blue sky, clear blue sky. And I looked, and then a few popped in, more popped in. And then I noticed they were really far out because a plane flew through them to sort of give me some depth perspective of where they were at in the sky. And I was like, oh my God, is this a UFO? What are these? Are these balloons? What are they? They were sort of little white, shiny specks in the sky. And my mental mind was trying to figure it out. Okay, is it are they stars? They kind of look like bright stars in the middle of a blue sky. And quite a few, maybe about when they all finally showed up, there was maybe 30 to 40 of them. There was quite a few. And I called my friends, and I was like, look up in the sky, where are you at? You know, trying to get a direction of where they were. I had a friend in Burbank, and I was like, look, you know, to your east, up at this direction in the sky, what do you see? I don't see anything. I'm like, no, dude, it's crazy. There's a fleet. There's something going on.
Yeah.
And that really sort of rocked my world, so to say.
Yeah.
And created, so after that experience, I thought for sure, this is it. The ETs have landed. It's going to be all over the news. That night, was ready. You know, I tuned in to the TV. I'm like, here we go. It's going to be on the evening news. The whole world must have seen this, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No mention of it. My mind is blown. I'm like, how is that possible? How could nobody have seen that? It was so obvious. And then I waited, well, maybe it'll be in the morning news, and the next morning, nothing. And then I started Googling, you know, trying to find out what, if anybody else had seen anything. No reports that day. However, through my search, I came up with some videos that resembled what I saw in those Mexico City sightings. There's been a few, if you see those big fleets out there, not quite that many, is what I saw, but very similar in the phenomenon, in the way it was presented to me. So that just got my wheels turning, and then I was like, okay, I got to figure out what I saw. And then I kept investigating, going further daily. I became obsessed. Literally, I was like, what did I see? And then I went back to the Disclosure Project, Stephen Greer's work, found out he did CE5s, kept pursuing and investigating and doing research. And then a couple years later, in 2010, I went to one of Greer's CE5 events. I signed up for it in Rio Rico, Arizona. And by this time, I had become more versed in the subject. Right. I had sort of known more about it, known some of the players, and understood about CE5, the phenomenon and whatnot. And then we did 3 nights under the stars, CE5s, as well as Greer brought in a few others. I think Richard Hoagland was there, and a few other people were there to speak to in this conference. Right. And I was, you know, it all made sense. It had been information that my mom had sort of told me about. Yeah. And I was like, this is it. The world has to know. I can't keep this a secret. Yeah. You know, so I thought, and the powers invested in me as an actor with, you know, somewhat of a name, not really, but you know, going to conventions and making these appearances. I said, I thought I can't keep the bottle on this anymore. So I wrote a blog at that time, sort of explaining my whole experience at the Greer event, because 3 nights in a row, I saw stuff, you know, the whole group. We saw, you know, all kinds of unidentified flying objects. What were they? We don't know, but they were not airplanes. And it was, I explained in detail the different types of phenomena that I saw. Every night was sort of different. But then that began my deep journey in really trying to figure this whole thing out. And that's when I started hanging out with researchers. My buddy at the time, Jeremy Corbell, who was the director of the Lazar film that just came out. He also did the Skinwalker Ranch film. So he and I were sort of martial artists. We had worked on some films together, and he was just getting going with his investigations into this realm. And he befriended John Lear and George Knapp. Okay. And he started working on his films in that world simultaneously as I was investigating. And then we just started hanging around the same, you know, UFO folks. If you go to any of the conventions, the typical conventions, you have your Richard Dolans, your Lyndon Moulton Howells, and your sort of that research world that I'm sure your audience has probably looked into. And if you go to any typical UFO convention, these are the usual suspects that go to these, you know, Stanton Freeman, a lot of the folks who were at the Citizen hearing. Yeah. And those folks sort of became my friends and colleagues, and
Wow.
researching and going down that rabbit hole, and then working with Bassett for 3 years. He introduced me to a lot of folks in that world as well.
Yeah. So I know the world has sort of become like the people that are the Stephen Greers and the straight researchers, and then there's sort of our group who are more on the experience. I haven't had any real experience that I could say this was definitely an extraterrestrial experience, though I'm a channel, so who knows. But most people in this world have deep interest in that. And then so there is a sort of split now in the world, because and I can understand, because if you're going to the government, you don't want to come in and go, every day I'm channeling an alien and this is the message, because maybe Congress isn't ready for that. But how did you go from
Congress to channeling?
Well, but go from, you get downloads, the same thing. You're an actor. We can go that way. But how did you go from being sort of straight research into this world? And then which led to your series that you're doing now?
So during this time, during the production and pre-production and raising the money for the citizen hearing, actually the very first thing we did, so I used to run a production studio in LA called Just Cause Productions. And we had a large mocap motion capture stage. And again, I think your audience knows the balls, that you put on your body, like Avatar and Lord of the Rings, Gollum, that technology. So after Avatar, I actually, during the process of Avatar, I had a studio, and our studio grew, and we actually made our own motion capture stage, which now is the top Hollywood, one of the top 3 or 4 Hollywood motion capture stages in existence. So my business partner from Japan and I at the time, we built that out, multi-million-dollar project, awesome stage. And because of my interest into the UFO stuff, we had, and Bassett was there, and we had, we called it the monthly ET media meetup groups.
Oh, wow.
Meetup group. So if you lived in LA, it was sort of the invite to the industry. If you lived in LA and you're in the industry, so we sort of, the protocol was, if you had any sort of relation or ties to the Hollywood film industry, whether you were, doesn't matter what your position was, whether you were just, an extra, an actor, a producer, a grip or a lighting technician, we sort of put the invite out and said, if you're interested in the subject, come hang out on Tuesdays and we're going to talk about it, and we'll have guest speakers and this kind of thing. So I did that for like 3 or 4 years, monthly meetup meetings. And at these meetings, they went from being a small group of, 10 people to sometimes we had 60 to 70 people.
Whoa.
And we had the space for it. My old motion capture studio was this large studio. So word got out quite quickly.
Wow.
Just Cause is doing UFO meetup groups. And so we had guys like Daryl Anka, and we had Wendy Kennedy and Nora Harold show up.
Wow.
And we'd pass the mic around, and Daryl had no idea at that time Daryl was who he was.
Daryl's also in the film industry, right?
Yeah. So he said, and he'd be this really quiet guy. I'm in the film industry, and I do, some CGI effects and things. And I've just had some experiences. And then he'd pass the mic. You're freaking channeling Bashar. Why don't you? So I had no idea.
That's so awesome, right?
Right. And then the mic would come to Wendy, and she's like, I've worked on a couple things, and I also have had some contact, and pass the mic, right? So these in our world, in this world now, these superstars of channelers, right? They were very humble, and they were just showing up, I think, just to kind of check out what's this UFO thing going on over here.
Well, those 3 started really together, I think, didn't they? Or they were maybe do stuff together.
I know I know Lisa Royale and Daryl started together. I'm not sure. I think Nora and Wendy have worked together a lot, but I don't know if they may have kind of started together. I think.
Okay,
but I think those were sort of separate.
They used to channel, like the three of them used to do like events together, but.
Oh yeah, I think the three of them did events together. So yeah, you have these powerhouses of this world, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea who they were.
Awesome.
And so we do these meetings. I was at the time still deep in my research in that world and meeting other experiencers, contactees. I would go to I'm blanking on her name. Well, we had Barbara Lamb come as a guest. We had a lot of guest speakers that Steve Bassett would pull in, and Richard Dolan and different folks. If they were sort of coming through LA, they're like, "Oh, this guy's coming through LA. Let's get him as our guest speaker." We had Allen Hynek's, J. Allen Hynek's sons, two of them. They actually both worked on the Avatar film.
Oh, that's funny.
And I didn't even know, at the time I didn't know who Hynek was. I didn't know that they were the sons. And then we sort of found out, and they were like, "Oh, let's invite them in as guests too." So they came and spoke. So there was a lot happening at that time. I'm running the studio. I'm getting all this information with hanging out with these people and sort of finding out the truth, as far as the government cover up and the different aspects of that. And I'm just doing my thing. And the more I research it, the traumatized abductees,
mm-hmm.
I'd go to some of those meetup groups and sort of talk with them. And then the more I dove into the subject matter, the more I thought there was something off with this negative perspective. There's a fear-based perspective. And even after the citizen hearing leading up to it, there's a lot of mixed camps, right? As we know in ufology, there's the draconians are going is it Jacobs? What's his name? Robert Jacobs. He does a lot of regression work, and he sort of believes that it's all demonic, and they're gonna overtake us and suck our blood or something, a world dominant takeover kind of thing. You have a lot of people in that camp that are sort of calling them demons and whatnot. So, but it just didn't feel right. Like in my core, I'm like, if that was like logically, if that were the case, they would have done this already. If they're gonna take you in your sleep and go through the effort of putting you back in your bed, that shows that there's probably something good about this, good or it's not as demonic as you may imagine it. Because if they really wanted to suck your blood and harvest your organs, they would just drop you in space, right? This is where it just kind of logically just didn't make sense. I'm like, there's something more to this.
Right.
And then I remember at one of these UFO meetings, Wendy, we were just chatting afterwards, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm a contactee." I didn't know she was a channel, and she said, "I have guides, and we had a lot of people show up at these group meetings that have guides, right? So we all have guides, but a lot of them would verbally say, "I have guides. I'm an abductee or I'm a contactee, and I have guides." And so it was sort of becoming a normal speak thing for me at the time.
Mm.
And she said the guides, well, they say it's a soul contract.
Mm.
And as soon as I heard soul contract, like it joggled my whole reality. And sort of made me go, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah.
And then that was like, follow the breadcrumbs, Reuben. Follow the breadcrumbs. So the soul contract little breadcrumb dropped, and I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense. That actually fits into my paradigm of what logic is, right? And being a researcher." So then I went there, and then I had the conversation with her, and then simultaneously, I think somebody else actually showed me a video of Bashar, and they're like, "Hey, isn't this the guy that shows up at your meetings?" I'm like, "That's totally him." I was like, "What a clown. That guy's crazy."
Yeah.
But what he's saying is actually kind of cool.
Right.
I'm like, that's crazy talk. I mean, presentation wise, I thought, Bashar, what a clown. This is my first instinct. I'm like, that guy's.
I think a lot of people have. It's a very. You don't know what to think when Bashar first.
Yeah, it jolts you out of your. You're just like, all right, whatever. That guy is pretty quiet and reserved at our meetings. He certainly wasn't this. So
yeah.
So I had to sort of again readjust my perception of channeling, because I also come from a background with Ramtha, and if anybody's delving deep into Ramtha, there's some not so nice things there.
Right.
We won't go into that too much, but I have a bit of trauma that I had to work through because of what my mother has been through, and my mother being my mother, and we're close, and what I was going through during my high school years of the trauma associated with the Ramtha phenomenon.
Okay.
So all of this channeling stuff, it's not all bells and whistles.
No.
Just to throw out there can be some negative sides to it.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to learn discernment.
Yes.
But so I had to sort of work through my traumas with that to accept the information. I was sort of primed for it, but I wasn't diving in. So I was like very skeptical. So like when Bashar or Wendy or anybody's doing a meditation, I would close my eyes, but I'd kind of have one eye open, like looking around, making sure that there's nothing gonna,
yeah.
what's the real message here? What's going on?
Right.
And I researched and tiptoed into, we did say I dove in, but I actually did take my time, and while I'm producing this and while I'm doing this other stuff, I tiptoed into this channeling world very skeptically. Is that a word, skeptically?
Yeah.
Right. One eye closed during the meditations, but one eye open, sort of like making sure the boogeyman's not going to come out and get me. And then paying more attention to the teachings, the messages, and getting less attached to the story that everybody's saying, but just really taking the information, integrating into my own being, and then realizing, okay, the information for me is true. It's truth. I can see it at work. I can follow my excitement with no expectations and doing it with integrity. And I can see how doing that is actually creating a positive effect in my life. So these cats must be up to something. There's something going on here that's really good. So I've been, after having those experiences and doing that, I'm like, all right, now this information, now that I understand it to a certain extent, at the time I still was fresh and new, but I was really getting sort of tired of the polarized within the UFO communities. There's a lot of polarity with it's good, it's evil, it's this, it's that, it's whatever, and there's a lot of just mudslinging and just not so nice talk.
Which is funny for people who claim to be scientific.
Right, which not only scientific, but just even somewhat spiritual, even to get into this concept of UFOs, just to have the perception and the awareness and the understanding and the acceptance of that reality, you have to be somewhat open-minded and spiritually advanced.
Right.
And I was finding a lot of spiritually advanced people, but also at the same time very rigid and not so. And I hate to put labels, but we'll just say people that just didn't have an open mind. I'm like, wait, you're open enough to talk about aliens, but other stuff you're not open to, and you're sort of putting a negative spin on things. And I'm like, that to me, just the logic didn't dictate that this phenomenon was negative.
Right.
Unless we're going into like Ramtha stuff, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I was sort of gravitating as I'm in that mix of the UFO world and doing the citizen hearing and getting invited to go speak at the UFO conferences and the UFO Congress and getting in that world deep. There was just that part of me that was like, no, there's a positive message here. And that's the message I want to put out. You know, I don't want to focus on the negativity. So the channeling information sort of had this positive message. You know, every time I would listen to Bashar, every time I would listen to Wendy, there was a lot of self-empowerment coming through these channeling messages.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's where the focus needs to be. It's not about, you know, the evil Dracos sucking our blood. It's about this.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided to do Interview with Ed. Was I wanted to create an awareness around the subject matter, but I didn't want to focus on the negativity.
Right.
Or negative aspects, or have people guessing, oh, is the aliens are going to come in the middle of the night and take me out of my bed. Like, I'm like, we're beyond that. I never got taken in the middle of the night, and, you know, I don't have those memories of that, negative memories. And I understand a lot of people who have those memories and are working through that trauma. But I think for the majority, for disclosure to happen in a productive way, we need to start focusing on a more positive message. And I noticed the teachings coming through the channeling were all about the positivity, about shifting the energy, about going, you know, self-empowerment. So that's really where I started shifting my focus, and then started really diving into this world.
Yeah.
And here we are. I'm on Hucolo.
Yeah,
This
right?
is amazing. Saturday morning. Oh my God.
8 o'clock. Yeah.
8 o'clock.
We got
Coffee's
the
kicking in.
We could have done it at 5 a.m., which is really the prime time. You know.
Oh no. Speaking of coffee,
No problem.
I can still hear you. I'm just in the background.
No problem.
Getting a second cup.
So with Interview with ED, why don't you
Mhm.
tell people how you came from ET to ED? And
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was, so originally what I was setting out to do was a feature film. I saw the movie Tuning In. I think at the time had just come out.
Right. With Bashar, Rob Gothier, Brad Johnson,
Right.
Wendy Kennedy,
Cryon.
Cryon.
Right.
Yeah.
So I saw that and was like, I think I can do this better. No offense. I think the film was great and it created a lot of awareness for the for those cats, but a lot of them I know these, they're coming to my meetings. I'm like, I know these people. So I thought maybe I could do a little bit better, and I want to tell a positive story. So I reached out to Wendy, Nora, Daryl as well. At the time he was deep in his First Contact movie, creating that. So he kind of said, I'm just really busy right now. We'll figure it out later. And we're still saying that same conversation like 4 years later. But so I just focused on Wendy and Nora first, and I interviewed Nora first, and then I interviewed Wendy. And during the Wendy interview, after it, they sort of what came through, and we were talking about Interview with Ed and the title, and they were like, it should, because originally it was Interview with ET, Extraterrestrials. And then when we sort of had a conversation around that, they said, well, a more accurate term would be Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensional. And then I sort of got a better understanding of what this phenomenon is more of a dimensional phenomenon than a terrestrial phenomenon. So, so I went ahead and changed the name right away before I even released anything. And then what happened was, after the second interview with Wendy, there was if you've seen the interviews, you've seen that interview, it was so densely packed with nuggets of juicy information. I was thinking to myself, how do I cut this down to a little 5-minute interview that I'm going to use in a feature film? I said, this information needs to get out there. I was like, this is too, and I was like, how do I package this? What do I do? And then I thought, TV show. Why don't I just do a TV show? And I had enough in the interview. I had a long enough interview with Wendy that I could put out like a full hour episode. Nora, I didn't. So I told Nora my idea, and I said, hey, I think I'm gonna do this in a different format. Can I re-interview you? And she said, yeah, sure, come on. So the second episode was actually with Nora was actually a revisit the second time to her, and we did a longer interview, and then I turned that into an episode. And then it was just, I just thought, okay, right now let's just do these interviews and just put the information out, because it's too great of information to sit on. And part of my I guess my contribution to this, this reality was coming from the film world. I would see videos on Bashar and other channelers, and I just always thought the information is so good, but the presentation is, a lot of people, especially me being in the Hollywood film industry, a lot of people do care about presentation. A lot of people don't, and they just, let's just dive it. Let's just focus on the information. But I thought, well, to make it a little more palatable for others, if it's shot in this, in the standard format that we know in an interview style, and use good sound and good equipment, then it might be a little more palatable for others. So that was sort of my goal, was to presentation, put it in a nice package. So that was what I set out to do early on, and with these interviews, and then it just grew, and then I did one or two and put that self-distributed on Vimeo, and just no problem.
I guess dog who's very he's reactive.
Okay.
Stop it. This is Archie making all the noise. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So
So it just evolved into the series. And then, last year, Gaia, I should say the Gaia conversation had been going almost since the beginning of the series. After a couple episodes, I had been in conversations with them about the citizen hearing, and the offer they were making for it didn't quite work out. From what we had invested, that was over $1 million project. And I said, but I got, I have another show I'm working on. Why don't you guys give this a try? And they're like, oh no, we don't do channeling. That's too far out there. I'm like, Gaia TV, that's too far. Channeling too far out there. Come on. But they're like, no. We'll talk about secret space programs and all that stuff. But channeling, no, we don't do that. I was like, okay, just whenever it's here, my series is here whenever you're ready, if you want it. And they're like, no. So a couple years go by, and then last summer I get a phone call. Which, funny enough, the day of or the day after, Wilcock puts out his resignation letter on, from Gaia TV, out to the public, and I'm sitting there watching the YouTube video of that, of somebody reading his resignation letter, and then all of a sudden in my inbox, Gaia's like, "We think we're ready for your show," and I'm like, "Oh, sweet, awesome." Coincidence? I don't know, but perfect. Sorry, I had a phone come in. Can you hear me? I had a phone call come in. So I can't hear you, Karen. Can you hear me okay? Just double checking. Good.
Yes,
Okay.
I can. Sorry, I muted myself. Yes.
Perfect. So Gaia reached out last summer, and then we started the process, and now look, here we are. It's taken a little while, but the episodes are coming out on Gaia. The exposure it's getting is great. I'm getting emails, and a lot of positive feedback of people watching the show. I just got off the phone last night. A guy who's working on some kind of frequency harmonic art project, is fascinated with the information and wanted to know about frequency and vibration, and we ended up having a good chat,
Awesome.
about that stuff. So it's great. Just released your episode, Karen, on the Vimeo page.
Yeah.
So it's great that this information is now, again, like I said, presentation and package.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it's sort of, that was part of what it needed to reach the masses. Yeah. And I'm glad I stuck with that format, even though, it was just a labor of love in the beginning. It wasn't really making me any money. It wasn't, but luckily, because of my acting stuff, I had the time and I had the resources to sort of self-produce, self-distribute, and self-fund the whole project. And now we've got Gaia helping us out a little bit, make it easier. So hopefully there'll be more episodes coming out now.
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
I get to be number 7. So we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. If not, it's on Vimeo. But so you've been doing this now for a few years. I met you a year and a half ago at the channel panel in LA.
Right.
So you've been, what have you learned now? That's my question to you. Where are you now versus where you were when you first started tiptoeing in, and how much, because you've embodied so much of this now.
Right.
So
Right.
what have you really learned, and where are you sort of headed now?
Well, I absolutely swear by the formula, the Char's formula, which is basically, other channelers basically say the same thing, which is, in every now moment, out of all the moments made available to you, everybody's heard this a million times, but I'm going to say it again because this is the most important nugget to take away from all this is the formula. Yeah. Out of all the available moments in this, in this now moment, out of all the available choices made available to you, pick the one that excites you the most, do it with integrity and no expectations of the outcome. Right. That's it. That alone, following that, has brought me so much joy, so much growth, internal growth, external growth, my approach to, just in my day-to-day life, just everything. And it sounds simple, the formula sounds simple, but when you start really integrating no expectations, integrity, being in the moment now, not focusing on, possibilities in the future or what happened in the past, but really being present with what's available to you now. Like, it's not easy. That's a very hard thing. It's an easy thing to say, but it's a hard thing to follow. But as the more you work that muscle and you're able to follow it and do that, oh my God, miracles are happening daily. I'm getting shot at in Guatemala and bullets are not hitting me.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's how it works.
We kind of didn't get there yet, but maybe you can tell that story. I will tell you, in the Hucolo pages, I posted several different things about you, and one of the things is that article about that happened, and that's such.
There's a video if anybody wants to see it, and it's my belief that I had divine intervention, and you can actually see a warping in the video. Which some people might claim to say it's a lens distortion of a zoom, but I was zooming in and out with my lens. So 2 frames before you hear the gunshots and the back window gets blown out, 2 frames before that happens, there's a obvious warping effect in the video, and we want to, for my documentary, we want to sort of have this analyzed by a professional to see if it truly is a zoom effect, because it happens on your iPhones and other things when you try to zoom or focus in, rack focus on something, you get a sort of a warping effect or a blur. Yeah. This effect that happens in the video, and it's online. I encourage everybody to check this out. Just before the gunshots, the buildings, everything starts to. It's a warping effect. It's only for a few frames, but it happens unlike any other point in the video, or earlier in the video.
Yeah, I'm getting a download about that right now. Maybe I'll share it with you after. But for the people who are not familiar with the backstory of it, can you please explain where you were, why you were there, what was happening?
So I was there filming a documentary with my friend Steve Copeland, who was the director of Shift of the Ages, that followed. It's available for free. It came out in 2012. Steve, he's become a dear brother. He is sort of on a parallel path with me, and I'm sort of went the ET route, and he went the indigenous Mayan route. So he'd been following Alejandro. His name's really hard to pronounce, but everybody just calls him Tata. He's the grand elder of the Mayan everything, right? So he has the staff, the corn staff, that that's been in his lineage for generations, and he's like the main Maya elder and keeper of the Mayan teachings. So Steve had spent nearly a decade with him on and off filming for his film Shift of the Ages, sort of trying to prep the world to say the world's not going to end in 2012. The Mayan calendar does not say what the mainstream media is trying to push out there as far as the end of the world and all this stuff. It's actually a time of great change, and all the teachings that we're used to are the same teachings that that Tata and the Mayan cultures were teaching. This is a time of great change, positivity. If we embrace it that way, it's the tool, the powers in our court. The ball's in our court. We get to choose how this outcome gets to be. So for Vision of the Ages, which is part 2 of Shift of the Ages, we're following the prophecy of the ego and the condor, if anybody's familiar with that. It's a famous prophecy that goes through a lot of the indigenous cultures, both North and South and Central America. A lot of them, this teachings have been passed down. This prophecy has been passed down that one day the southern condor and the northern eagle will unite. And when that happens, there's going to be peace for 1,000 years. And there was also the prophecy that they were going to be separated for 500 years. And that's when we have, the Christopher Columbus and all that stuff coming over and sort of doing those cats doing those things. And the natives of North, Central, and South became oppressed, and, their teachings. And we don't have to go into all that history. Everybody knows that. But they knew that time was going to come to an end when the eagle and condor united. And now, so Tata's chief, his main message was going throughout the North and South Americas, Central Americas, to bring this teaching to help explain the prophecy for those who didn't know. And most indigenous, including North American, Chief Phil Lang, who was made some guest appearances in Shift of the Ages, he really embraced the prophecy, and he was like, yeah, this is real, and I want to help. I want to help get the message out. I believe in Tata's message, and I want to continue that. So for Vision of the Ages, we're sort of passing the torch from Tata, because now he's on his deathbed. Literally, he's on oxygen. He's 91, 92, and he's not doing so well physically. So he's not able to travel. And Chief Phil is in his 70s. He's not a young guy anymore, but he's still very determined to go and spread this message. So Steve sort of told me about this project, and and I was like, oh, that's in alignment with what I'm doing. It kind of matches up with all of the teachings that I'm involved with. Yeah, let's go do this. Let's go. We hadn't gotten the funding for the film yet, but Tata, again, being sick, and we didn't know how much time he has left. So we sort of had an opportunity with Chief Phil, also his schedule opening up, and we're like, let's all go down to South America or Central America, Guatemala, and get some footage and see if we can sort of pass the baton. In Chief Phil's mind, he wanted actually the corn staff, but we were like, there's no way that's going to happen, but whatever. Let's just energetically pass get Tata's blessing on this project.
Right.
And that's what we went down there, is to get that footage, which we did. We got it. There was a lot of strangeness around that. And I just remember sort of laughing. There's a lot of supernatural things that happen when you're dealing with Mayan elders and prophecies and, this kind of thing.
That's a whole other film, right?
It's a whole, well,
Is it in there?
It's gonna come out in the film. Yeah. Wow. I mean, we had like cameras bleep out, 3 cameras all in the same spot have issues.
Yeah.
And that, so and then we go back a week later, and in that same spot, the cameras have issues again. So there's like these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then we get shot at, which Chief Phil had a premonition. His wife actually had a premonition. Chief Phil was going crazy. He was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. So we got our blessing from Tata. We were just going to stay a couple extra days, or Chief Phil was going to stay, with us, and we were going to get some B-roll of going to some temples and doing some stuff. Chifa was, as soon as he met Tata, he's like, I got to get out of here. Get me to the airport as soon as possible. And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, just get me on a plane. All right. You know, it's kind of obnoxious for your chief to do this, but whatever. Like, we spent a lot of money to come down here and get this footage, and now you're saying you got to go. This kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So we rush him to the airport, get him on the plane, and then, he's gone. Finally, we got, all right. That was a lot of, because he was creating a lot of this energy. Next day, so we go back to we were staying with Elizabeth, who's also a Mayan elder, and she is actually Tata's one of Tata's chief main students. And we were kind of like, well, now what do we do? We still have a week before Steve and I fly out. We're like, well, let's go get some B-roll at some temples anyways, without Chief Phil. So we decided to do that, and we're on our way to some temples. We're having to go through Guatemala City, and we hit peak traffic time, and GPS, we missed our exit, right? So GPS is rerouting us through these neighborhoods to get us back onto the road. And it was in the middle of the day, or 5 p.m. And busy neighborhood, people walking on the streets, didn't look any different than any other neighborhood. And all of a sudden, shots are fired. Our back window gets blown out. And we're trying to figure out the situation. I look in my rearview mirror. We can't see out of the back. Steve, he's driving. I look in the rearview mirror. I have my camera, which captures the first 3 shots on film, which you can watch the video. And I look in my rearview mirror and I see a guy in a tank top running and I can clearly see he's got a gun in his hand.
Oh gosh.
He runs up to the car and tries to open the door. Luckily, Steve, intuitively, when we got into that neighborhood, he hit the lock button. And as he's running up, I'm like, oh my God, what do we do? This guy's going to come after my camera. That's all I'm thinking.
Right.
Not thinking that he just tried to take my life by shooting, into the car. When these things happen in these moments, it's really hard to process everything that's happening so fast. Even being an actor and a stuntman and sort of acting in those situations all the time, I had some prep, but when you're really in these situations, you're kind of on autopilot and you just like, whatever happens. So I'm thinking he's coming after the camera. Like I still, by this time, I can't comprehend that anybody would want to take my life. Like that's just not it wasn't in my aura. Like I couldn't even conceive of that. So I threw the camera under the seat thinking, well, if he doesn't see a camera, then what, maybe, logically it didn't at the time, it doesn't make sense. But he runs up, tries to open the door, and I'm looking, out of my side, I'm looking at this guy and I can just see pure evil. I couldn't even really see his face. It was like black, dark hate. Yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, whoa, this is scary. This is some supernatural stuff going on here. And then he tries to open the door, can't get in. As almost instantaneously, he's raising the gun and I'm looking down the barrel and I'm like, oh shoot, this guy is not here to take the camera. He's here to kill us. Then it clicks in and I'm like, I scream, Steve, go, 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 and Steve not even seeing what's happening over here, just trying, because we're stuck in deadlock traffic. Steve puts it in gear, goes against traffic the other direction, goes up on the sidewalk. We're like, and then sort of simultaneously as he's pulling away, this guy starts unloading the clip into the car. And I'm just like, what's happening? I don't know. Stuff is flying up in the car, plastic bits and metal pieces and stuff. I'm getting hit by this stuff, by the way. And I'm thinking, am I getting hit by bullets? I don't know. There's so much adrenaline and crazy stuff happening. We pull out, we get up to a certain area and again, stuck in gridlock. I look in my rearview mirror. The guy is still running up the hill.
Crap.
We're sweating bullets, literally.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, okay, where do we go now? Steve does some crazy, maneuvers through the streets, cutting people off, going in between traffic. Then we get again another gridlock stop, and we turn the corner down this hill, and we're just stuck. There's nowhere we can go. There's no maneuvering in anything. We're just stuck. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror, just counting, like waiting for the guy to come around the corner, thinking in my mind, okay, what do I do? What are I calculating? Okay, if he comes around the corner, do I get out of the car? Do we stay in the car? If I get out of the car and run, what about my buddy Steve? What's he gonna do? Like all this stuff is just running through my mind like
Sure.
a million miles a second. That seemed like it was probably about a minute or 2 minutes that we were waiting there for traffic to move. It felt like a lifetime. I was just trying to calculate every second, every movement, every possibility. Like I saw a million flashes. Luckily, the guy never turned the corner, and then traffic moved, and Steve muscled his way and really aggressively cut people off to get us onto a main street. And then if you watch the video, then a few minutes, about 10 minutes after that, Steve and I are like, what just happened? Holy moly. Then we actually put cameras on us, and we start filming our conversation around that. So it's a fun 30-minute ride if you want to watch that video.
It's riveting.
Yeah.
It's really, my goodness. It's on international news. It was everywhere. It was all over the world.
Yeah. So my buddy Steve, that night, so we finally get, and this is in the video, we're like, what do we do? Do we go to the cops? We got advised not to go to the cops, because Guatemala is not the safest place when it comes to police and whatnot. We were told that we could, it's not guaranteed, but we could get exploited, money or something like that. So we were like, well, let's go to take the car back first to the car rental. We were actually not that far. We're only a few miles.
Sorry.
Let's get a new
bullets.
What's that? Let's get a new car. We need a new car. We can't drive around.
Sorry for the bullets.
Right.
I hope you got the insurance.
Well, we had gotten the insurance, so we're like, well, let's get the car. Let's return the car and get a new car, because the back window is clearly, we can't drive around with a shot out back window. So we go to the car rental, and they come out, and they're just like, whoa, what happened here? And we caught all that on film. We caught the guy's reaction and stuff. So again, it's available. It's out there. Maybe you can put the link. It's actually on the Shift of the Ages website, or Vimeo page. And I can send a link later if anybody wants to watch this. But now that you have some context of what happened, it might be more enjoyable to watch it. So that happened, and I knew instantaneously, like literally as the gun was firing, as we were pulling away, like energetically, I remember one of the first things that came out of my mouth to Steve was like, dude, we just shifted timelines, and that's not something people would say normally, right? In those situations. But like for me, I felt a clear energetic shift that there was, and I kept seeing the days after this, I kept seeing another version of me that actually got shot. And so I know because you see there's bullets lodged into the seat. You can actually see, I took a picture and was like, oh, good thing I had my bulletproof coffee this morning, because if not, I would have had a bullet in the back. So
I drink that too, bulletproof coffee. Yeah.
So I actually felt that bullet touch me in the back. It went into the seat, and the metal plate protected me,
Wow.
and we have the evidence there. But so I knew that there was this other timeline, this version of me that had been shot,
Right.
and somehow there'd been this big shift, a big timeline shift. And in my latest interview I just did with Gita Rose, her channeling Bella, we get to unpack that. Luckily, my buddy Steve came up with me for the interview, and he helped man the cameras. So we had both him and me, and our energy was there for her to sort of read and give us a little bit of a reading on shifting timelines and why it happened and all this stuff. So it was a hair-raising moment. super grateful for the whole thing. The insurance money still hasn't come through. Knock on wood. It's going to come through though. We got this because it was expensive.
Yeah.
But still, even that said, I came out, unscathed. My buddy and I were, we're alive. We're healthy, no injuries, no bullet holes in us, the car, unfortunately, otherwise. So what happened then after that, to follow up, so Chief Phil had gotten a call, and this is in our video too. He had gotten a call from his wife. She had a premonition that Chief Phil or we were getting shot at.
Nice.
And
huh?
we're like, oh, thanks for letting us know, Chief Phil.
Yeah.
And that was what was freaking him out. So he was like, my wife is, pretty in tune, and I got to listen to her. And we're like, next time, Chief, you got to tell us.
Right.
So we
Would
could
you
like
have
plan.
listened though? Would you have listened?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff that there was a lot of drama and stuff that Chief Phil was going through, that I just was like, okay, this guy's just off his rocker. He's making a big deal out of nothing.
Yeah.
Was what. So even if you're right, even if you would have told me, Steve, maybe, but even if you would have told me, I would have said, Chief, I love you, but I think you're focusing on some too much negativity here. Let's not go there. So anyways, it was definitely an eye-opening, awakening experience. A near-death experience, essentially. I didn't see the white tunnel and all that, but when you come that close to physically dying, which I've a few times, believe it or not, as a stuntman, there's been some cases where people are like, whoa, that was close, dude. You got this close from working on Avatar, having a horse. I had to do a lot of falling off the horse, days of falling off a horse. And the horse kicked, and the stunt coordinator said it missed your head by that much, and if it would have kicked at that velocity, at that distance, it probably would have shattered my skull and killed me instantly. So in the stunt world, we have these situations where we're faced with danger, but the difference is I'm kind of oblivious. When you do a stunt, you hope everything goes right. You imagine the best scenario, and you move forward. And then you realize after, oh, that was a close call. You can kind of laugh at it. Literally staring down the barrel of a gun with the intent of someone trying to kill you, it's a whole nother story. It's a different type of situation.
Yeah.
So that was hair-raising and educational, because what I got out of the whole thing was, am I truly following my excitement? And I was at the time, yes, but now I have new choices available to me. So now I can, how do I grow from this situation? Do I want to put myself in that situation again? If you're not following your excitement, that could happen again. And the lessons I got, just really quick, I don't know if you want to go into this, but the lessons I got were, you've done this already. I already did that with the citizen hearing. The Chief Phil story, as true as it may be, the citizen hearing, as true as it may be, sort of going down this road of, there's voodoo spirits, evil spirits, there's potential, there's a lot of negative energies that are trying to grasp and go after Tata and the staff, and this sort of power hungry energy, which is very similar in the citizen hearing when you have, governments going after reverse engineered technology.
Sure.
It's the same type of energy of this hungry, I want to get this item, this thing to give me power.
Exactly.
This external projection. So I was in that same energy field again, years later after I'd done the citizen hearing, and a lot of weird, strange things happened during the citizen hearing too. Supernatural, as well as just government. You have government, when you're dealing with governments and UFO technology and reverse engineering, then a lot of strange things happen. And
tell that story about didn't you have a Man in Black kind of?
I had a few type of moments where strange people would approach me and say things that were just not quite right. And I had a choice then. I had a choice to follow those breadcrumbs and go into that dark conspiracy world, or continue on the path that I know I'm supposed to continue on, that I keep getting turned into, and is this information of channeling, this information of self-empowerment, focusing on the positive. Don't go into those negative frequencies. If you do, there's repercussions, there's consequences. And I keep getting shown that. You know, I go into some
really
interesting places. It really shown, and it was happening during the citizen hearing, and it could happen, you know, in Vision of the Ages. And I believe there's a place for that work. And I actually had to walk away from Vision of the Ages on the ground. Like I said, we shifted we have a new focus now of doing ETA, extraterrestrial awakenings. And so it sort of branched out, which was great because Steve and I sort of collaborated in the beginning, and then I sort of had to say, I had to honor myself and my choices. And I said, Steve, why don't you focus on Vision of the Ages? I'll support you in the background, and let me focus on this new documentary that's going to be more about these teachings and more about, you know, in self-empowering, and not really focus on the prophecies or the conspiracies or the, you know, these demonic energies that are trying to get the power. Like, that exists, and that's a story to be told, but that's not my story.
I want to just kind of divert from a second from this story, just to kind of say something about that. There was a point last year where I think I talked to you about it, where I had this huge realization of all of this conspiracy that had sort of taken hold within the spiritual community. And I really looked at it for a while. I think it did a number on me. I was really out of sorts for a good few months, just even looking at it, just trying to like stay neutral, but observe it, because I was like, what is this? And I really had to let it go. I expressed my need to share with people that they should embrace discernment, and that this was really a negative path to be on, and it wasn't going to serve, you know, the light and the dark. They can't, you know, there's a line.
Same area. They can't exist in the same, like Bashar always says, you can only exist in the same frequency of what you are.
Exactly. And I had an experience, a sort of spiritual experience, where I was being shown light and dark. And I was told in my experience, no, it exists. See it, but you don't have to play with it. That's what I was told. And I was like, okay. So, but even though I knew that, I had to like prove myself right in that.
Sure.
But when I finally like just was like, okay, this is not for me. I know this world is not for me. And yeah, but I can imagine that you were shown it in a very visceral, you know, bullets flying
every time.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, and the deeper message is, are you paying attention? Are you paying attention? You've done this already, Reuben. You've been here. Are you paying attention? Oh, if you're not paying attention, we'll create wormholes, and the next morning a dove flew into our window, and it was just all of this crazy supernatural stuff, constantly reminding me, hey, this is here. Are you paying attention? There's a lot of signs. There's a lot of things happening supernaturally. It's up to you. Are you paying attention? What do you want? And the universe kept presenting that choice to me.
Right. Don't you think that's a moment of reckoning? Don't you think that's a soul choice moment where it's like, where are you going to go? Here's your destiny moment. What are you going to choose?
Well, that we're in right now in our, this crazy world we live in right now, we're all getting this presented with this choice, and it's becoming more and more obvious.
Yes.
And it's a gift. It's a gift for all of us to use that as an opportunity to make a new choice. We can wallow in the same political polarity game and, you know, go that direction. But if we keep coming, if the same thing keeps happening to us, we have to ask ourselves, if the same sort of crazy negativity, you know, different situations in our life that are constantly, we're getting this resistance, it's all an opportunity for us to say, oh, I get it. Now I need to go this way, you know, instead of doing the same thing. You know, the definition of insanity is, you know, doing the same thing over and over again. So we're collectively now being given opportunities to say, you want to keep doing this? You want to keep going down this path? You've done this already. You've done this before. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And this is sort of the collective story that's being told to us now in our politics and in our just even our day-to-day lives now. In our individually, we're getting. I know everybody on the planet is going through a lot.
Yeah.
And that's really this is such a it's a good thing. It's a sign, because when you are getting shot at, you know, and you survive it, you've made a breakthrough. To a certain extent, you can stay in that energy of getting shot at, but if you pull yourself out of that for a moment and like, I'm done, no more getting shot at, you know, I learned the lesson, I got it.
Yeah.
But when you can do that, then that's when the biggest growth happens, because all of these things are just, they're marker points in our lives to help redirect us onto a specific path. We still have the choice, but we have the choice to go into it. We have a choice to go into the trenches, the men in black, and associate and hang out with those guys. I know they exist, but you know what? I'd rather be hanging out with the, you know, the high vibe, light language speaking, you know, cool channelers, than with good empowering messages, than to go hang out with the men in black who are going to just tell me about, you know, who are going to create all kinds of weird, stranges, you know, crazy events around, and, you know, going into implants and reverse engineering alien technologies and cattle mutilations and all that stuff. I have other friends doing that, so I don't need to do that.
I can check in with them, and
exactly. How's that mutilation thing going?
Yeah, it's such an important. That is such an important lesson of, you know, my teacher always just said, where attention goes, energy flows. And the other quote that came to my head just now was, "You will know a man by the company he keeps." You know, choose your friends wisely. I mean, it's in our consciousness that, that's to do that. But I don't think that we had such a understanding how profound those statements are, and how deep they really are, and how deep they go, and what they mean for us. Yeah.
Which it was a great, you know, editing your interview was also a great lesson. And this is one of the reasons why I love doing the interviews in the form and fashion, because I get to sit there and, you know, I'm concentrating on the technology and a lot of stuff. So I'm kind of half there listening, but I'm also knowing that, I get to unpack this later. You know, I'll really dive deep. I'll be present enough to have the conversation, but I'll know I'll really get the deep stuff when I go into editing. And that's one of my joys, is to really unpack this information. You know, I watch the video as I'm editing, you know, I watch it 20 times to make sure everything is clean and the cuts are nice. And the whole bit about our political polarities that I put out, that little short video, which everybody can go to the YouTube page, and they don't need to pay for that video. It's you know, Theos on political polarities is the name. If you Google that, I'm sure you'll get it. But that video is so important, because even now I love following the Q information. I love following, you know, all of the conspiracy stuff, what's happening. Right. But what I was clearly shown, it's okay to follow it. It's okay to listen to it. It's okay to be in it. But what you put out is what you get back. So if I'm going to be tweeting about Q or putting that information out there to my audience, I'm going to get the same thing back. So I'm going to get lots of conspiracy and lots of negative energy and lots of people dogging on me and whatever, if I'm going to put that energy out there. So I need to be very selective with what I put out.
Right.
And it kept, again, your messages in that download, as well as my own sort of unpacking all of this, is what am I putting out there? I need to focus on the message, self-empowerment, positivity. This is what I need to put out there in order to attract that into my own life.
Right.
Again, it's okay to follow Q, but if I'm going to go have a conversation with somebody about Q, it can't be this. It has to be someone who's willing to accept and have an intelligent conversation about Q and match me on my level and see it as self-empowerment. But if I'm going to be putting out there and there's going to be, Newsweek or other big media that's going to be doing that,
Right.
then that's when I need to walk away from that message, because I don't want any of this.
Right.
Whether it's truth or not, doesn't matter.
Right. That's the point, right? That's the point. It can be true.
Sure. It's all true.
It's all true. Yeah. That's another point. But it can be, but do you want to play with it?
Right. So maybe this is a message for your audience. And I think your audience is super chill about this, but we have to be careful about the channeling message, the UFO message. In our world, this is all positive because we accept it and we understand, we can digest and unpack the positive messages in it, the empowerment.
Right.
There's a lot of people who aren't at the level to have the conversation at this level.
Yeah.
So it comes off as this. When it comes off, even though it's not, it comes off as an attack to their belief systems.
Right.
So even though it may be super true for you, channeling, connecting to these energies, connecting to these worlds, when you try to describe it to somebody who's not at that level, they could see it as a threat. Many do.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the message to back off and say, okay, I need to meet this person and come at it from a different angle. And try that. And if you can't get through, then just don't even bring that subject up. It's not worth talking about.
You don't have to convert anyone. There's
no converting here and this is where religions get all mixed up in the way they have, because the believers end up seeing it as the gospel truth and not seeing that all truths are true, not seeing and honoring that person's journey, honoring if that person's into some hardcore, right-wing Christian, whatever, that's their journey. And we have to honor that. We have to honor their journey down that path. And we can't come at them with any kind of conflicting.
Yeah. And we also, I hope that most of us are at this place where we understand that everything is just experience and all experience is wanted. And that is also that which validates everything. It validates all sorts of experience, but we have the superpower called choice.
Yes.
It allows us to, decide if we want to play in that arena or not in that arena. But that is very high level stuff for people to kind of understand. I mean, it takes a long time to really embody that and really embrace it, because you'll hear people go, well, I know that it's everybody's journey, but, and it's just like that but at the end of the sentence just shows you haven't got it yet. You don't believe it, and so I'm really happy to hear you say that.
Absolutely. I mean, this is for me too. I've been immersed in this, in the channeling teachings and everything. I'm still getting shot at, I'm still getting redirected, and because I'm, in my choices and my ways, I'm still, trying to put out a Q message or something. Oh, the world needs to see this. This is good stuff. And then what happens? I get, I don't know if you've been paying attention to my Facebook, but then Newsweek actually did a hit piece on me.
Yeah.
So, and that's another sign to say, hey, Reuben, back off. You want to go against the grain? We'll show you what that's like.
Yeah.
So there's a flow to all of this, and we can just follow the flow and follow these signs that say, oh, I don't need to go there. All right, let's go back.
Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just saying it. All the signs that I've been getting is to redirect me back to this conversation that we're having, and for me to focus on the work of the channelings, the interviews and and the ET story. Like that's a non-polarized, in my world right now, this conversation I feel is a non-polarized story that people can choose to accept it or not. Some of this other information, people can still choose to accept it or not, but it's a polarized thing. If that, to have that conversation, we can have this conversation and people will just, if they're not ready for it, they're just going to roll their eyes and like, that's Reuben and his crazy UFO talk. And it's not going to, some people these days, some people very rarely get negatively charged about the UFO conversation.
Yeah.
Most don't. Most are like, "Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Yeah, mathematically, it is impossible for there not to be life out there in the universe. That's very interesting. I don't know about talking to space aliens. Now, that's a whole other conversation. But it's a possibility." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is a possibility. Let's leave it at that. We don't need to talk about it any further." So I'm not beating up against anybody's belief system and saying, "I'm talking to space aliens. Damn it, listen to me."
Have you ever seen an ET or any being?
Oh, I get this. I do the C5 stuff all the time. I see craft all the time.
Okay.
I've had one telepathic. I mean, I get the downloads, right?
Sure.
I get the downloads as everybody. I can't identify, which being or who it's from, and I haven't gotten that refined with my sensitivity. But I had one time not one time. I've had a few clear instances, telepathic interactions with some mantis beings.
Okay.
One particularly gave me a huge download on a lunar eclipse night, and that was sort of like the story of who they are and how humanity sort of got where it's at. part of the big experiment, which was a couple of years ago now, but still very powerful interaction.
Wow.
My whole body was vibrating and all kinds of stuff was going on. So yeah, I can consider myself as a contactee now. Before I was researcher and I was stepped up, but now I'm in the contactee experiencer level. Not all the time. It's some people it's happening to them all the time. For me, it came at that moment, I think, because in my exploration, I put the call out. Hey, I want to know more about this story. It's a fascinating story. How does this all work? And then they let me know. They gave me some awesome downloads, and a little scary, in the moment when your body is vibrating and you're getting images and telepathic communication, which doesn't happen every day, right? Or it's happening, we're just not paying attention to it. But when it's happening so visceral in that moment, you're just like, whoa, this is real. There are aliens and they communicate telepathically. And how did I get all this information just unloaded and downloaded to me? This is crazy.
But you have those moments where you're like, this is really real.
Sure.
Real. That's when I first time, I think I told you the story of how I first time channeled on the radio live, like for
right.
events.
Yeah,
and
that's in our interview.
Like, my thing is exactly that. This is real. This is real. Even though I'd been doing it, I was like, this is real. And that's that gift that you get of that just clear knowing, so that it gives you the confidence and the surety to continue with what you're doing.
And that in every interview I do, was just in San Francisco Bay Area with Gita Rose and doing an interview with Bella, as well as we went to the Bashar event. It was happening, so we sort of coordinated it to happen at the same time. And listening to, being there live with Bashar and the Crystal Skull, and having the downloads come from that. So, and I pay attention to my dreams now. I have a dream journal and I do a lot of dream work.
Yeah.
So connecting those dots, there's a lot there when you're paying attention. Most people just don't pay attention.
Right.
When you look at the little synchronicities or big synchronicities, then it's all there. All of this stuff we're talking about, all of the contact, all of this higher intelligence guiding us down a path, it's there. You just got to look at the breadcrumbs and look at be present in the moment and pay attention to the dreams, pay attention to these little coincidences that happen in your life that guide you and direct you in a certain path. Right. It's all there if you want it. It's just basically saying, hey, are you paying attention? We're here.
Yeah. And once you open that door, it's just,
it's right. And it's still a choice. Again, like you said, I've had, my hybrid kid downloaded to me that same thing, that he is a choice. The idea of him, and he was very clear and said, if you don't choose this reality, it's not like you're killing me or anything.
Right.
So, because I was like, well, what, if I do choose that, and if I don't choose you, does that mean, is that like killing you? And he's like, no, it doesn't work that way. The choice is the focus and where you want to go with reality. Yeah. He'll still exist in his dimension reality.
Yeah.
It just won't be a part of my reality. And it's that connecting those, it's like underground, there's these two moles or groundhogs tunneling, and they're all going their own directions. Right. And we can tunnel those tunnels and dig and then meet. And then like, oh, hey, you're a reality. I just connected to your tunnel. Can I explore your tunnel in your area for a little bit? Or do I just stay in my tunnel? And they can come up, and we make the choice to go into that tunnel. And if we make the choice, then he's there to meet us. If we decide not to make that choice, he's going to keep tunneling in his tunnel, and we're going to keep tunneling in our tunnel.
I've gotten so much information about that recently. I could talk to you for hours and hours about it. There's so much there to unpack. I don't know if you want to stay here for another 2 hours, but that's that's a high level understanding that you're having.
Oh yeah. And that's with everything in life. And it's not just, hybrid children. It's all aspects of everything in our reality, from even the mundane things, like we were just talking about, digging the tunnel into the negative realities and having, the Men in Black show up. These are all tunnels that we can invite and go into, and they'll be burrowing on their side to come and meet us, if we decide to burrow as well. But we can completely say, you know what, hybrid kid thing, it's a little too much for my life right now. I can't handle that. I need to focus on more practical things in my life. Love you, kid. We'll meet somewhere down the road, so then you make those choices to then consciously empowered, because now it's my choice. I'm not being let off with the burden of hybrid children, and I have to take care of the kids and change the planet and do all this stuff and make a home for them. That burden is gone.
Yeah.
And that's the way he explained it to me. It's like, no. That's not how this works.
Right.
It's always a choice.
Always.
And there is don't get bogged down by any burden. Now, you may have some really loud kids on the other line over on the other side, really urging you, pushing you to go that direction, to burrow that tunnel in that way, because they are they are your higher self, they are your guides.
Right.
But even then, you still have the choice to say, you know what, I have enough kids right now in my real life. I have, if you have kids or not, I have enough, situations in my life, work situations, whatever. I just don't need to invite that into my life right now. And I appreciate the wisdom and the guidance that's going to come from interacting with those children, but it's just overload.
Yeah.
So let's go over here and let's focus on other positive aspects and other things that are more grounded into my day-to-day life. And maybe when I get all this sorted out, I can build my, sustainable community in the woods, and we're all singing Kumbaya and it's all good and everybody's happy. Then maybe I can focus on the hybrid children, and then they can come through, and then we can interact in that way.
Yeah.
But in the meantime,
go ahead. Sorry,
but in the meantime, I'm just gonna, focus on that's a possibility. Thank you, and thank it. Yeah. But right now, I got films to make. I got people to interview, and and we'll interact in that way, in that form and fashion, as it presents itself.
Yeah, Theus calls this consciousness streams or destiny streams, and they're literally timelines that you can choose at any moment. And there are moments where you actively become conscious of them and how they will impact you. And the more conscious you become, the more actively you do choose. Like you just said, no, it doesn't kill me, but I'm just not going to participate in this right now.
Right.
And then you move over. Yeah. Which also emphasizes the degree to which we really are multidimensional and how that really is such a thing, which is a whole other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation. I'm sure your audience is probably like, come on, guys, stop talking. We have some questions now. Do you want to get into audience questions?
I will tell you, there were questions more. There were some questions about your childhood, and had you had any experiences that Trinity?
Nothing I can remember, but just from what we were just talking about. So, as I was having this interaction with the hybrid child, and him showing me that this potential reality, he was also simultaneously showing me the more I step into that reality, the more I sort of accept this idea of having a hybrid child. Now all of a sudden I'm having memories. I'm remembering my mother having conversations about her having visitations as a child. And then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And the more I accept this idea of me having a hybrid child and accept this reality, the more I'm starting to remember, which I think is me adjusting to a timeline where that actually exists. Because in my belief system, if I'm not believing in the idea of a hybrid child, I'm going to be existing in a timeline where that doesn't exist.
Right.
Because that's a heavy burden to carry, so to say. So memories, I'm going to block out any memories of that. Maybe it happened, like all truths are true. So of course it happened, but I get to choose if I really want to embrace that as a truth, as that being part of my life. And the more I embrace it, the more I have the conscious communication with the hybrid child, the more memories I'm going to have of perhaps me being on ships, perhaps me being part of the hybrid programs. But because I've chosen right now not to have that conversation so much, it's there. Kids can talk to me whenever they want, but I'm not actively. It's not my highest excitement right now to have that conversation with the kids. I'm having more fun doing the conversations in this form, in this manner, and I'm open to that possibility. So if they can ease me into that world, which they are, and it's happening, then that's how I want it. So, but it was very clear in that first contact that the more I focus on that reality, then the more the reality is going to be shown to me to support that story. Right. And that sort of gets into Mandela effect and this whole other thing. So we're, where we choose to focus, we will create for ourselves a past, a history that will justify our beliefs in that reality. Right. And I'll, unpack and open that door to my mom being part of the hybridization programs, to me being part of the hybridization programs. And so long story short, getting back to your question, yes, I've been presented that timeline. I haven't chosen to unpack that yet.
Oh, right answer.
So I do not have any conscious memories of being on board ships yet. It's a possibility. I started to a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, we're not ready for that right now. Let's go. Let's just focus on the task at hand.
What you're saying is so rich. It's so deep, because it is so true. We don't realize how through our thinking, through our words, whatever we speak and think, we literally step into the timeline where that is true. And we will start to pull more things like a magnet to us. And then all of a sudden, it becomes everything. And
Right.
so we do that so unconsciously just by saying something, but we forget our power in using that same word, those same sounds and thoughts to create a timeline, which is for our highest. That's why Bashar's like, follow your highest excitement, because that's going to be so much better than following all this other, crapola. Sure. But we also, it's not just following our excitement that happens to happen to us. We create our own excitement by speaking it out and by projecting it out there.
We're constantly incanting spells with every word we say, with every action, every thought we create we create a multiverse, a universe.
It's an invocation to the universe,
right,
to create for us, because we are that is what our, I guess, our superpower is the best way to say it.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah, we lost your picture.
Okay, I'm just I have to get my charger on my phone going here. So it goes. So now.
So this is Reuben's headshot, one of his headshots. It's
now we're back.
There's like a little pulse that goes around it. So it's like, here's my headshot. Here's my headshot. So yeah. So if we as humans really understand that, that's when we break the matrix. That's when we have the ability to manifest and create and dance down the path. It's when we are not conscious. Mindfulness is that. People think mindfulness is recycling, and it is, but mindfulness is having that awareness that our words and our thoughts create our reality. And
our actions.
And your actions, exactly.
It's more actions than anything else. So you can have a thought about,
sure.
a demon or a negative thing, but how do your actions are the most powerful things in this universe. So that's why putting a tweet out there about Q is a physical action that's going to have ripples and effects into the ethers, because I have 20,000 followers on Twitter. They're gonna either ignore it. Most people do ignore those messages, but some people are gonna see that as because they've been brainwashed by the mainstream media to see anything Q related as alt-right, right-wing, crazy conspiracy talk. So they're automatically gonna go there. So that I'm creating with my action of posting Q, even though the message in my eyes tends to be more positive and has a positive outcome, in other people's eyes they're not going to see it that way. So then that creates a negative effect. So if I can think about and talk about Q in this manner with your audience, and I think they won't get that negative charge, but it is a highly negative charged topic. So therefore, if I'm going to physically take action on a highly negative charged topic, there's going to be repercussions of that.
Right.
I sort of sidetracked a little bit, but that's I think the difference between thinking and actions, and sort of giving the permission slip to your audience.
Yeah,
it's okay to think negatively.
Sure.
A lot of people are like, oh no, I'm thinking negatively. I need to.
No, you're right.
What do? I need to think positive. Think positive. And that in itself is a downward spiral of trying to edit yourself all the time, and we get caught up in that too much, I think. So audience, it's okay to think bad thoughts. It's okay to somebody cuts you off in traffic and be like, oh, you mother, you god, that's okay. Express yourself, but then catch yourself and realize, as long as you don't take actions, as long as you don't reach for the gun in the glove compartment and start opening fire on the guy who just cut you off, it's okay. It's okay to murmur a cuss word here or there and get upset at the guy cutting you off in traffic, but just don't catch yourself before you take action on those things.
Yes, I agree with you there. When I meant about thoughts, I meant the thoughts that lead to action. But I do agree with you so much. And if we can become conscious of what we want to put in action, and then start to practice that, And that's really powerful.
Which was a big lesson for me. Now, no more, and again, our interview with the political polarities was really a good reminder of what you put out is what you get back. And, even in a way, having this conversation is sort of a little too much going into the Q stuff. So, but just that, I'm using that as an example,
right?
That, I don't need to have that conversation more. I don't need to focus on that. What is truly my excitement is having this conversation, having a conversation about thoughts, actions, beliefs, how they affect us. This is what excites me. And this is where I need to really put my focus. Yeah. So this is what I'm doing now. It's funny because whenever a lot of people, my video game Devil May Cry came out a couple months, or last month. Mm-hmm. It's, one of the top #1 selling video games. So there's a lot of attention on me right now, especially with getting shot and all that too.
Right. About
people wanting to interview me about the game stuff. But sort of, I'm like, well, the game stuff is exciting and I like talking about, but you know what? This is the conversation I really enjoy. So whenever I do an interview now, I tell people, I'm saying, great, we can talk about the game and my work in that sense.
Yeah.
50%. But we have to devote equal time to having the ET UFO conversation. And awesome. And a lot of them are like, okay, well, yeah, that's interesting. Sure, let's do that. Cool. So what's been happening is I've been doing a lot of interviews and really diving deep into this conversation with people who normally wouldn't have this conversation.
Right.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that's where my joy and my excitement is, having this conversation. Not talking about the conspiracies, not talking about, just talking about ETs and the possibility of them existing, and how, I'm doing this interviews with Ed and these kinds of things.
What just came to my mind is I was like, you're like this era's Shirley MacLaine.
Sure. Oh, well, Shirley MacLaine, huh?
Do you know?
I'm like Shirley MacLaine.
Do you know?
I guess
she came out with a book. In the 70s called Out on a Limb. Did you know that book?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't.
Talked about reincarnation. Mm-hmm. She talked about contacting spirit guides. She did a lot of journeys and things. And when she came out with that, and they interviewed her on like 60 Minutes and Barbara Walters and all of these people, and people were like, wow.
She's lost her rocker.
Lost her mind. But you know what?
Right.
She blew it right open, because all of a sudden, all these people started coming through like, yes, I've had this. I mean, she went on a huge spiritual journey.
Sure. Yeah. And I remember hearing bits of it. She was in Machu Picchu and she got the downloads and had a lot. Yeah.
She was the first one. And the book was called Out on a Limb, because I think she had past lives and all kinds of stuff. Right. She was like the only one, but she was a pivotal person in this movement. That you don't realize, like in the 70s, like before the harmonic convergence, I think that
right. That's right.
She was pivotal in bringing that into awareness. And I don't know if you knew that, but I think you're.
I see the connection now. Yeah, I don't think I'm as big as Shirley MacLaine. I don't have that many followers, but
I think you have an audience. I think you have an audience that you probably don't, realize that you have. And
sure. In the video game world, yeah, I do have, it's a big following. And most of them, like I put a post on Twitter about Devil May Cry, right? And I'll get like 1,000 likes and retweets and all this stuff. And then I post, the ET stuff, and I maybe get 5 likes or whatever.
And hashtag Devil May Cry.
Well, even if I did that. So it's just, there's very few people in my audience who are attracted to this information. But for me, it's like, if I just can red pill one person in that 20,000 follower audience, if just one person gets this information, and which they are, I had a guy yesterday call me who's doing this art project, and he's just came across my series recently, and a fan of the Devil May Cry stuff. So, and he's just like, dude, everything you're saying in that show, it's so like, he's getting red pilled very fast. So even if it's just, 1 out of 1,000 people can sort of understand this information and use it in a way to be empowered to unplug from the matrix, and that then job done. You know, this is why I do this, is because to see these people come into their own power, to come into the understanding of this matrix we're living in, and to embrace these teachings and to use them in a positive way to direct their life in a positive direction. Job done. Just one. It only takes one.
Perfect. A question came to my mind while we were talking earlier, and maybe this would be good to address it, because we were talking about things like negative stuff. And we always hear about all the negativity in Hollywood and how Hollywood is driving this sort of agenda. Can you give any, because you're in Hollywood. I mean, you're there right now, but you're outside of it and you live in that world. So can you please talk about it and sort of the people that are
Hollywood is a reflection of the collective. So same thing in the collective. What you put out is what you get back. So is Hollywood perpetuating the message, or is the message perpetuating Hollywood? There's different ways to look at it, and you can get caught up in the conspiracy that, oh, the Hollywood's trying to take over the world and spew this message to enslave us all. That's one perspective. Another perspective is Hollywood is just reacting to what the collective consciousness is putting out. So they're writing stories about fear and enslavement that the collective consciousness is already putting out there. So I wouldn't, by sort of putting the blame game on Hollywood, you're sort of taking that power away. You're taking your own power away of choice, saying, oh, this is being force fed on me. You can turn off Hollywood. You don't have to go to the movie theaters. You can come join us on a Saturday morning at Hucolo and have this conversation. And not watch Hollywood. Or you can be selective with your shows, like Star Trek Discovery, which is my favorite show on TV, which has beautiful messages of self-empowerment, of, you know, equality for all, of exploring space, of, you know, there's amazing shows out there with good messages. Not all of Hollywood is a projection of the negative side of the collective consciousness. We have shows, there's something out there for everybody. So my take is Hollywood putting out negative messages to control the world? Yes and no. There's different ways to look at it. If it is happening, and I think it is happening to a certain extent, these people at these high positions, maybe at the top, sure, there's probably some guys pulling some strings, but most of these people, most of the directors, most of the producers are completely oblivious of some kind of, you know, hostile takeover of all of the media and, you know, of this Illuminati type idea, that they have no idea. If it's happening, they have no idea it's happening. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you they're not going out and sacrificing goats every day and like, we're going to infiltrate the media and take over the world. They are just beacons. They are channelers like you and me and all of us. And they are just simply channeling the energy of the collective consciousness that is asking for enslavement messages, right? For, you know, polarized light versus dark, the same old thing that we've been, you know, they're just channeling that message. Yeah. They're channeling that story that we've heard so many other times. So it's up to us, not up to them. It's up to us as consumers, right, to pick the channel. We have 1,000 channels and we have amazing shows. You know, the OA is another amazing show that sort of gets into topics of timelines and self-empowerment. Yeah. We have the power to pick which content we choose to digest or ingest. Yeah. And so yes and no. There's truth to that idea of Illuminati taking over the media, and there's also a different way to look at it, which I think is more empowering way, is to say you can tune it in or tune out, and you do that. That's what I do. I just pick the shows that work for me.
Yeah, I think also too, I mean, if we could deconstruct for people what it actually takes to make even 3 minutes of film, and all of You know, I mean, all
Right.
the cameras and all the
Sure,
positioning,
sure.
the lighting, the costuming. I mean, and all the people that are involved in all the things. I mean, people turn on the magic box in their in their living rooms, and they think
Right.
that stuff shows up ready made, and they don't realize how
much work goes into it.
much work that goes into it. And you know, and I think one of the nicest things in a lot of the videos you show is you show yourself with all the CGI dots on you, and then
Sure.
see it how it's actually, you know, on screen.
Right. What it comes into.
How all of a sudden, you know, now all of a sudden your character's wearing armor, and you're a
Right.
you have a different kind of face, and you're a boy or
Right.
you're a girl, and you know, all these things. And it's also, I think, important to realize that behind most of the things that we see, there are people, there are real human people behind these characters, and doing the lighting and all those things. And hundreds of people are participating in just these enterprises. And it would be a lot to have that kind of mind control on every single human being to get them to agree. Because if they thought that that's what they were doing, they wouldn't do it.
Oh, exactly. No, it truly is, you know, one thing, it's a tool. This idea of the Illuminati and these secret societies and groups that are manipulating and pulling the strings, it's a way, it's a great tool for us to look at and to start to discern for ourselves.
Right.
But again, as any tool, we can get caught up with the tool. We can get caught up with the usage of a tool. I'm a big fan of entheogens, using them in the right way, in an indigenous, you know, high intention ceremonial sense.
Right.
But we can get, with any tool, we can get caught up. There's the addiction aspect. There's, and with this idea of the Illuminati, it's an idea, it's a tool to help direct us and guide us during a certain path. We can get caught up in it and give our power away to it.
Right.
Or we can use it to unplug us from the matrix initially, which is a great, you know, this whole concept. The world right now, everybody knows what the Illuminati is. Like 5 years ago, you say Illuminati, you couldn't have a conversation about the Illuminati. Nobody would know what that was.
Right.
And now it's in our mass media, it's in everything, you know, there's stories, and even the Avengers and all this stuff. We have, you know, stories of the Nazis taking over and all this stuff, which is a great tool to use initially to unplug us.
Right.
So we can take a step out and like, wait, there's other forces that be. They may not be as refined as we see in our storytelling as the Illuminati, but that's an energy pattern signature that I can now recognize. I couldn't see it before. Right. Because I didn't have the concept or the idea of the Illuminati. Now that I have the concept and the understanding of what that energy is, I can say, oh, that's not for me. No, thank you.
Right.
And if we can use it as that and not go any further, we don't need to go any further into that story. We can. It's great for science fiction and stories and everything else. But does it really serve us if we really dive into that story? Most people are just going to attract negativity to their lives by going deep into that. And that's where we can, again, find the next tool and learn to, if I go too deep into that story, I'm going to invite all these negative things. And thank you for that tool.
And it's also what I just came to my mind. It's a way of bypassing saying, this is being done to me. These things are being sent to me, as opposed to you having the power, like you said, turn it off. Don't watch it. You know,
exactly. It's a choice.
And again, just thinking that it's something directed at you. I agree with what you're saying. It's an expression of the collective, because the people that are writing these things, you know, artists are channeling. They're channeling and creating based on the atmosphere, the energies, and everything else. That's their inspiration, and they're being true to what they're, you know, being
channeling.
They're channeling, and you can channel on any level that you want to. And some things you can appreciate from the idea of it's all just an experience of, we can have the experience on the screen that we don't necessarily want to have on our everyday life. you know.
Right. And most people, I'd say in the public eye, see it that way. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to a movie, I'm going to have an experience, and I'm not going to think about it. And that's just the movies.
Right.
Subconsciously, yes, there is some things that are happening there, and there's subliminal messages and things like that that are happening subconsciously. Are they intentionally putting it in there? I would say that's a choice to believe if they are or not. But then you have to ask yourself the repercussions of that choice. If you're choosing to believe that it's intentionally being put in there, you're kind of now saying that there's, these physical Illuminati beings, and now I have to watch out for the boogeyman because they're going to come and get me. But if I sort of choose the idea that it's a collective conscious type thing, now I can say, well, they're unconsciously buying into the energy sequence, the energy pattern of that Illuminati. And at any point, because now it's just energy, it's not a physicalized being that's actually like a draconian reptilian body that, David Icke's story of these green reptilians actually, pulling the strings behind the scenes. That's a much harder thing to unplug from than just saying, well, it's an energy vibration that is coming through these people, just like us channeling the positive messages. They're channeling sort of a disempowering message. And that's an easier thing to disconnect from,
right,
for us, and to imagine us disconnecting from, than a big green reptilian with a cape and the staff, which exists. That reality exists,
right.
but we can choose that. There's different tunnels happening underneath, that behind in the quantum fields. We can choose the lesser of the evil, so to say, as a reality. And then for us to disconnect from that is a much easier task than disconnecting from, the big green reptilian on the throne ordering everybody to go drink all the blood from all of the whatever.
Exactly.
That story, that story exists.
Remember, always, we're sovereign. We don't give away our sovereignty, and we're not,
exactly.
So I appreciate that conversation.
I would say just adapt to whatever story is going to keep you in your sovereignty. So if you are starting to go down a rabbit hole where there's, blood-sucking reptilian space aliens out there that are going to come and get you, that's a story you can pursue, but you have to ask yourself, how does that serve you?
Yeah.
Is that story going to serve me at all? Is it going to give me benefit, or is it just going to create misery and fear in my life? And you can kind of see, that story is not serving you, and you can actually start to physically see that when you start to go down those rabbit holes. You can physically see in your life, strange things happening, scary demons showing up, and all that stuff actually starts to manifest in your life when you start going down those paths.
It does. Yeah.
So make the conscious choice to tell yourself a different story, one that doesn't have scary blood-sucking aliens, and one that has positive messages like the ones we're tuning into, of light language and love and harmony and disclosure in a peaceful, non-combative and a nice way, that people aren't going to have to, lose all their money at the banks, or, the crash of society, or, these things don't have to happen.
No.
You can pick the story that's going to serve humanity in a gentle way, in a compassionate way, and focus on those stories. And that's why I love this story of channeling and empowerment. And that's the one I'm going to focus on.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Reuben. We usually go 2 hours. We've gone 2.5, and I would love.
Oh, it's been 2.5 hours already. Wow.
But when you have these kind of conversations, they're so fun,
Sure.
So
I feel bad we haven't gotten to any audience questions.
People ask their questions, and as people ask them, you kind of would answer them. So
good.
Nobody actually had any question that you didn't answer. So that's
cool.
Good thing. I would tell you one thing that's sort of funny is that I have a channeling from like 1993, and it's one of those doom and gloom channelings. And I was just like, no, this is not happening. And I just put it away. And I was like, you know what, years later, none of it had happened, but I realized, no, the timeline I was on, it didn't happen on. But every once in a while, I'll look at it and I'll just be like, this is just so interesting to see how, if I had maybe focused on it, where would I have been? You know, where would I have been?
Right.
And there is a multidimensional part of me that probably is there, but my consciousness
Absolutely.
moved through. So yeah,
Well, that's the power of choice. That
exactly.
goes to show you we truly are creating our realities.
Yeah.
And if you wanna test that idea, go focus on some Illuminati blood-sucking alien stories and then see what happens to your life. And then shift, and then don't focus on that and see what happens to your life. That's the power. You can see truly how your life is going to unfold.
Right.
Give it a couple months of following one story or the other, and you will see.
You will.
I guarantee you will see a big difference in which story you choose to follow.
You know, I would just tell you this, and before we go, is that I had an experience one time where Theo said to me, when do you trust yourself and your own choices enough that you don't need to be right about your choice? And they gave me the example of when you go to the refrigerator and you've got the milk and you know the milk is sour. Why do you still taste it? When is your knowing that the milk is sour enough? Like, why do you have to prove it to yourself? Or it's like if you want to go to a party and you're like, you know what, I really don't feel like I want to go to the party. It's not going to be a great party. And then you go to the party and you're like, it's a terrible party. See, I was right. When is just, it's not my greatest excitement to go, become the point where you don't go, where you don't. And that is sort of this idea of you don't have to prove yourself right in your sort of intuition about something. You just trust your own knowing. That's good enough for you, you know, and that's
absolutely
as well. I'm still learning it, but it's, you know,
that is the biggest journey for all of us. That is to listen to that sensation, that idea, that feeling, that, you know, that is, you know, the hardest part of all of this is because we've been so trained not to listen to that since birth. You know, that's all hokey pokey crazy stuff. But, you know, the more we're having this conversation, the more we all are going inside and doing the internal work and connecting to that internal voice through meditation, through whatever modality, through entheogens, through, you know, whatever it is your modality is to do that. As long as you are doing that, and the closer you can get to that voice and listening to that voice, so it can stop you from going down that road that you're going to get shot at, or or, you know, drinking the milk and knowing and getting a tummy ache after that. You know, the more we're in tune with this internal voice, it's guiding us. Truly, it's guiding us whether we're listening to it or not.
Right. That's important.
And to listen to it, we can sort of avoid some of these situations. To not listen to it, we're going to get, you know, the shootings, the things that happen that are basically saying, hey, are you listening yet? Wink, wink. You know, we've been trying to give you this message, but you haven't been listening. So time to listen. And again, no mistakes. You know, me getting shot at and doing that there was I believe a higher purpose to all of this stuff. And to every what we may perceive in the moment as a negative situation, just relax into it and say, okay, there's a positive message in here. I just got to find it. Where is it? And then that's when you search for that. And as soon as you find it, then you're like, that's it. Okay, I got it. And you can, like, I had lots of choices over the past month of how I choose to look at the shooting situation, how I choose to look at the Newsweek hit piece, how I choose to look at these moments in my life, and how I can create that story in my mind. So I chose, and you can look at my Facebook, I chose a positive way to perceive all of it. And nothing but positivity. And what does that do? It just propels me further. It's like a rubber band that shoots me off into the direction that I really want to go in. And it's happening. It's happening now. And I'm seeing, see, as long as I know this already, all this information we all know, we've heard it. Follow the excitement, integrity, no expectations. And as long as we can keep doing that, these situations will actually propel us faster and further into the direction we really, truly want to go.
Yeah, exactly. If we can reframe our life, reframe it, take it, filter it, reframe it, and put it into our own perspective and what's going, like you said, just, I always see like being shot like by a giant slingshot forward.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, Reuben, why don't you tell everyone what you've got coming up, and also again, his website is in the description for everyone there. It's ReubenLangdon.com. But and also the Vimeo, they can go to Vimeo and find an interview with ED, and also on Gaia.
Yep. So the website, and I still actually have to update the website with your profile, is interviewwithed.org, and that will take you, to the Vimeo page. I need to put a link there for the Gaia stuff. The website has been a little neglected, which I'll get to in the coming days. So interviewwithed.org. It'll still get you where you need to go. ReubenLangdon.com, my first name and last name, one word, .com will also, if you scroll through there, you'll get to the Citizen Hearings, which is citizenhearing.org, to my show, to, my other work as far as the acting stuff. You can sort of see what I'm doing in that space. I'm continuing to work on video games.
Perfect.
That sort of pays the bills. And, but I'm also, again, this Gaia opportunity has been super awesome. And hoping, I submitted your episode already, so hoping they pick that up. And if they continue to pick up the episodes, then that's going to allow me more time and resources to do more interviews, which I've already started doing. But so I kind of, after your interview, actually, Karen, I took about a year off.
Okay.
And didn't do any other interviews, didn't do, sort of dealing with life, getting married. I got married, and
yes, you did.
And traveling back and forth with Japan and trying to get my wife's visa thing sorted out. So I've sort of been dealing with that. But now that with the Gaia thing, it's sort of a reminder to say, hey, here's an opportunity for you to focus here. And that's where I'm putting my focus back into, following my excitement and doing more interviews with Ed.
Oh, that's so great. I'm so glad that it took this long to have you on. Really, I am. I'm so excited. And Vidika's in the chat. I see.
Oh,
Design for
Vidika.
She's in the
Excellent
YouTube chat, so everyone wait.
Very good, very good. Hi, Vidika.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing her soon too, hopefully.
Cool.
So I don't know, should I say this? I could say this, why not? So maybe your audience, and maybe Vidika doesn't even know this, but maybe your audience is familiar with Vashta, right? The artist who did did an amazing depiction of Theos. She and I talked yesterday, so I've sort of been looking for an excuse to go and do another round with some of these channelers like Wendy Kennedy and Lisa Royale and Vidika, and I'm like, well, how, the audience has already seen me have this interview, and sure, over time my questions evolve and stuff, but I've sort of discussed with Vashta, and we're working on now a schedule and a budget and everything for sort of Interview with Ed season 2. And cool. Season 2 is going to be Vashta interviewing a lot of the same people that I've already interviewed.
Oh, but very cool.
From her perspective as opposed to my perspective, because she's a great questioner. She's been deep in the peanut butter like me for many years now, and she has a whole different perspective on this phenomenon. Not that different, but from her perspective, a feminine perspective, her being an intuitive channel herself. So we've decided and agreed to do future episodes. And Vidika, you're hearing this now. We were going to talk to you about this later.
Just logged on, and then there it is. That's awesome.
There it is. So we're going to do an episode with Vashta interviewing Vidika.
Oh,
as well as other channelers.
Nice.
And that's going to be sort of season 2. We'll get to that down the road.
Very cool. Very cool. Very nice. I love Vashta, and yeah, it's nice. I haven't talked to Vidika in like 2 years already, so it's nice to see her there. I'm talking to her YouTube there.
Nice.
So yeah, perfect. we would love to have you back. Everyone's like, have him back, have him back, have him back. So we would love to have you back the next time you have something coming out that you want to talk about, or just to come talk about timelines and jumping them and all that stuff. I have some information I want to share with you after, but yeah, definitely come back. So this has been great.
For sure.
Yeah, you've got a big new fan base to keep following you. And I have a little question for you.
Sure.
Tell the truth. Do you ever play a video game that you're in just to see?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Because I would. I'd be like,
absolutely.
And then everything.
The novelty's sort of worn off now, but yeah, no, my favorite game of all time is Street Fighter, and luckily for me, I'm one of the main characters. I do the voice for Ken Masters in the game.
Oh, cool.
In the Street Fighter series. So, and he's like my character that I play anyway before I even became the voice.
Oh, that's
so. It's kind of like, it's like an extra icing on the cake when I get to play the game and actually get to hear my voice,
right?
Come through the game that I was going to play anyway. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's so funny. Do you know Mary Birdsong? Do you know her? She does a lot of voice stuff. Okay. I thought maybe you would have run it. Never mind. But anyway, so that's cool. Yeah, I think I was somewhere and I heard your voice and I was like, wait, that's Reuben coming through. That's cool. All right. Much love to you, Reuben. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, can't wait to talk to you again.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Much love, Reuben.